Hello, thank you for joining today's live Q&A on the real risks, rules, and stress of moving pets internationally. On today's call is myself, Georgiana Strait, Marketing Manager at Starwood. I will be moderating all of the incoming questions, and we also have Ryan Bull and Casey Witkowski. Ryan, do you want to start by taking a moment to introduce yourself to those joining?
Yeah. Hey guys, I'm Ryan. Coming to you from Colorado. I'm here with my 8-week-old puppy, so it may get a little hectic sometimes. This is Wilder. Um, he hasn't been doing pet shipping too long, but I've been doing it for almost 8 years in October, and I manage our team of travel coordinators here at Starwood.
Thank you. Casey, do you
Yeah.
want to introduce yourself as well?
Yeah, I am Casey. I'm located in Florida. I am the director of operations. So my team handles the logistics behind the scenes. I've been with Starwood for 8 years, actually just hit 8 years this August.
Yeah,
Wow.
we started around the same time, Casey a little bit before me.
Yep.
Well, thank you both so much for joining today. We have a lot to cover, and we're excited for all of the questions that you bring to us today. We are streaming across YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. So if you don't see a question in your exact chat, depending on what channel you're joining, it's probably coming from somewhere else. And we have about an hour to answer all incoming questions, so keep them coming. Also, if you stay tuned for the entirety of the event, we have a giveaway that you can enter into. We just dropped a link in the chat. So if you fill out that form really quick, you'll be entered to win. We have 3 exciting prize categories: a Starwood Pet Travel pet bandana for all of our pet lovers, a $20 Amazon gift card, or $200 off of a Starwood move. Some other instructions to enter: ask a question in the chat, follow Starwood Pet Travel on any of our social channels, and then fill out the form, and we will notify you via email if you've won. A bit of background about Starwood and why pet parents trust us for their moves. Casey and Ryan on the call, they're specialists in complex international moves, summer pet relocations, winter pet relocations, any time of year, really. We've also moved over 10,000 pets safely all around the world. We're experts in navigating airline embargoes, seasonal restrictions, and we can also provide step-by-step guidance on timing, documentation, and breed-specific rules. We also provide door-to-door coordination, so you can focus on your family's move abroad. Okay, so some questions that you might want to start thinking about as we get this live Q&A rolling. What makes organizing international pet shipping from the US so complicated? How do international pet shipping services coordinate with family flight plans? What causes so much stress when arranging pet relocation services? Why do international pet shipping rules confuse many United States pet owners? How do international pet shipping services impact pet welfare during flights? How do full service pet relocation services support international moves? So just some things to think about that we hear pretty frequently as people are starting to plan their move, just to get your wheels turning in today's live Q&A. And with that, we will open up the session. But Ryan and Casey, is there anything else that you think is top of mind when people start planning their move? What are some of the biggest FAQs that you hear?
I think planning your pet's move ahead of time, even if you don't have an exact move date for them or for yourselves. And that's because there's a lot of vet requirements that could take, weeks or months, depending on the country you're going to. So our motto is it's never too early just to get on board with us so we can give you all the pertinent information to hopefully make everyone's move nice and smooth.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would
Okay.
say the same, and maybe even acclimating to kennels sooner rather than later is also something that people ask, how can I get my pet used to traveling in cargo. We've even had people play airplane noises while the pet's in the kennel, and those can help alleviate stress. So that's a good tip.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think timeline and kennel acclimation are both huge ones. I don't think it's ever too soon to start. I've never heard of someone planning too far in advance for an international pet move. Okay, we have a question that just came through on Instagram from MSA Wilderivera. Are your services commissionable to travel agents?
I guess I'm not sure what that means.
Yeah.
Can they expand on that maybe?
Okay. Yes,
We don't work with travel agents. We are the travel agent for pet moves specifically. So we don't partner with like a hotel or a car rental or any sort of like excursion. It's just focused on the pet, if that's what they're getting at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with Starwood, you are really getting that door-to-door service, full service from pickup at residence if you'd like to airport, and then from arrival to your new destination. So really full door-to-door service there. But if you want to expand on that question, MSA Wilder Vera, please let us know. Okay, we also have one from Hawaiian Dharma. I asked for a quote from LAX to Jakarta for 2 tiny toy breed dogs. As I explained, I would be partnering with Pet Travel Indo in Jakarta to move my dogs to Bali. I was just told we don't ship to Bali, and well, it looks like that one might have gotten cut off. Hawaiian Dharma, if you want to expand on that one, I just want to make sure. Okay, sorry, she just followed up. And I already know, but Pet Travel Lindo would take over once the dogs arrive in Jakarta. So this tells me you cannot coordinate with a partner for my needs.
Oh, if you're talking about partnering with someone you've already reached out to and need help on the US side, I think that's something we can certainly look into, knowing that background. We don't necessarily bring pets to Bali or Jakarta, but we can look into if we can. That way, if we can be helpful, we can certainly look into flights or whatever you might need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so if you've already reached out to us, we'll send you a message after this live stream and, give you a nice referral to help plan your move. Okay, we have an incoming question from Frank A. Gudo, H41. I am concerned of the time my dogs will be under the stress of traveling from Georgia to Barcelona, Spain via Frankfurt.
Yeah, I think that's a concern a lot of people have. We work with Lufthansa often because they are experts with live animal transport. So when you're doing the check-in process in the States, there's the check-in process, and they're going to hold the pets in an air-conditioned, climate-controlled area before they bring them onto the aircraft, really trying to reduce the stress of that leg. As soon as they arrive into Frankfurt, they are immediately brought to the Frankfurt Animal Lounge, where they're let out of the kennel, they're given food and water and a good rest time before they're then placed onto their flight to Barcelona. And there they'll clear customs, meet with the agent, and then transport to your home. So we try to work with airlines that will reduce stress as much as possible and make things as efficient for the pet's travel.
Yeah, and I think that rest stop in Frankfurt's key. They have a vet on staff should there needs to be any medical attention. They're out of their kennel, they're getting assigned someone that will take care of them with water and food, make sure they're using the bathroom, and then they also log everything. So we have that extra reassurance on top of that. And at least if you work with us, we do what we call a pet premium move on Lufthansa. So that means we get an update and a picture during their time there.
Okay, we have another question from their Man, these are really tough usernames today, guys. I'm just gonna get into the question. If they turn my cat away once we arrive in Helsinki, sorry, do I join my pet or do I have a responsibility of paying for him to go back on a flight with me?
Yeah, I guess that's a detailed question depending on if your pet is flying cargo and not on the same flight as you, and if you're working with a pet shipper, if you're not. The benefit of working with a pet shipper is we work closely with our customs broker in Helsinki, for example, make sure your pet won't be turned away. So we're going to make sure our health certificates are correct, they're endorsed. We're going to have pre-approval to arrive. So if you're trying to do that on your own, and not working with a pet travel company, yes, I would assume you'd be responsible for any fees, if you're just doing it on your own. I don't know the situation where they would turn your pet away. Maybe if you didn't have approval to arrive in Sweden, or if the microchip isn't scanning correctly, that's something. So if you have any more details, feel free to ask a follow-up question.
Yep.
That sound right, Casey?
Yep, I was going to say the same thing.
Okay. We don't deal with that situation often, so I just wanted to double check. Saying everything correctly.
Yeah, I'd
Yeah,
say one of our... Go ahead.
It's a lot between what the USDA requires, what Helsinki requires, what customs requires. There's a lot of moving pieces, so it is possible the airlines could, like Brian said, if the microchip's not scanning it, they can't identify the pet to the paperwork, that they could require them to be sent back. But like she said, working with us, we do a thorough review of all of that information. We make sure that the USDA requirements are met, but also the requirements for customs in Helsinki.
Yep, every destination has different import requirements, so it's really case dependent, but working with Starwood, we strive to make sure 100% that there aren't any issues upon arrival, and that's also the benefit of working with a pet shipper.
Right.
Okay, how do you ship pets to Germany? In the hold, or do you have a person with them so they can be under the seat in front of you?
So for us, what we do is cargo. So like Casey was saying, we work with reputable airlines that have dedicated cargo areas for pets specifically. So they're taking into account temperature and pressurization. So that's what we do as a business. We have done what we call pet nannies, where we actually travel on the flight with them. We don't offer that unless it's something that really we need to do last minute in an urgent situation. But yeah, we specialize in cargo.
And if you are looking
Casey,
to do in-cabin, I would say if you're looking to do in-cabin, you'll want to check with the airlines, but also the destination country. Some destinations will allow pets to arrive in cabin, so it's really important that you just make sure you're touching base with the customs in that country, but also the airline to make sure it's allowed.
Right.
Yep. Okay. What is an ISO compliant microchip? And is ISO compliance necessary with every microchip?
That just means it's a certain scannable frequency, so it's 15 digits. They're all 15 digits, right, Casey? The ISO?
Yeah, the ISO is the microchip that it's recognized pretty much internationally. It can be scanned with almost any scanner. There are Avid chips. Those are a little bit more difficult. I think they're 9 numbers, but there's a specific scanner that you have to have, and some countries don't have those scanners to be able to read the chips.
Yeah, a lot of countries accept both the Avid and the ISO. There might be a few situations, like if you're going to Malaysia, it has to be the 15-digit ISO chip. In Hong Kong, for example, they accept Avid chips, and if your pet doesn't arrive with an Avid chip, they do rechip them. So that's something people don't know. But ISO is scannable by all chip readers, so that's probably the safest to go if you haven't already gotten your pet microchip.
Yep. And pretty sure ISO stands for International Standardization Organization. So I think that's a clear sign that it is accepted internationally. Okay. Another question coming in. Do you ship senior dogs 13 years old to Panama from the US?
Panama's not a common requested destination. So Casey, do you know if we've done one to Panama recently?
Not recently, but I will answer the senior part. We are not vets, so we always recommend having a conversation with your vet, preferably a vet that you've been going to for a long time and knows your animal very well. If they feel that your 13-year-old is good to travel, then we are able to do it, but we would have to look into Panama. I don't believe we've done one I don't think we've done one recently, no.
Yeah. Can you also speak a bit more just about USDA accredited vets and where that comes into pet travel and when that may be important?
Yeah. So the USDA, you have USDA accredited vets. That means that they have an accreditation to complete a health certificate. And then you also have USDA vets that are actually handling the health certificate's endorsement. When you start the travel process, it is best to start with a USDA accredited vet for all treatments, exams, vaccines, just to be safe. Some places like Australia, everything needs to be done by a USDA accredited vet. And then you have the USDA official veterinarians, and those vets are the ones that will actually endorse the health certificate right before travel. So they'll endorse it and send it back to us, and that is the certificate that your pet will travel with.
Yep. Okay. If I decide to travel by private jet from New Jersey to Madrid, Spain, can you handle the transport from Atlanta to New Jersey and the paperwork involved in the international flight?
I would say, yeah, we can handle that. It would depend on the size of your pet if we need to do like a long distance drive from Atlanta to New Jersey, or if we can fly into EWR. For domestic travel, we're very limited on kennel sizing, at least on the mainland USA. And I believe we could probably only do up to like a 500 KC or maybe a PP90 sometimes.
Yeah. Depends on the aircraft. 300 sometimes is a max. Anything over a PP90 though definitely is near impossible.
Yeah, so a larger dog, it would have to be ground transport, but a cat or a smaller breed dog would probably find a flight for you and then help with the paperwork on the other end.
Okay. Have you shipped any dogs to Portugal? If so, do they need to be quarantined?
We ship a lot of pets to Portugal. Yes, that's one of our top European destinations, Portugal and Spain this year especially. Quarantine, there's no quarantine in Portugal. The requirements are rabies done within a year of travel. There's a 21-day waiting period after a rabies, so the travel should be done at least 21 days after the rabies and no more than 365 days. Microchips required before the rabies, and then the health certificate should be done as well. But yes, very doable.
Yeah, we actually just recently did a study and released a press release about pet travel to Portugal, just because we have a ton of first-party data and we've seen so much growth in that area. If you Google Starwood Portugal, that should pop up and give you a little bit more information and even some really strong customer testimonials who have taken that flight path before.
Yeah, we can fly in. Oh, sorry, I was going to say we can fly into Lisbon or Porto. OPO is an option too.
So it's also my understanding that there's a new EU rule coming out sometime in October or end of year Can you expand on that? Have you gotten any inside knowledge regarding this upcoming rule change?
The commercial certificate rule change.
Yes, I believe that's it.
Yeah, that I believe actually just took effect not too long ago. But that is a requirement that the EU has placed that pet owners now need to travel on the full routing of the pet. So if your pet is going LA, Frankfurt, Lisbon, you would have to be on the same exact flight, the actual aircraft, same flight, everything, for that to be a non-commercial health certificate, meaning that health certificate is good for 10 days before you travel. If you're not on the same flight, you would need to do a commercial certificate, which is valid for 48 hours before departure. So usually you're looking at certificate on a Monday, flying out on a Wednesday.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say that's what the majority of our clients opt to do, because if there is a connecting flight in Frankfurt or Amsterdam, usually the connection is 6 or more hours, and so a lot of humans don't want to do that layover. So commercial certificates are very common. They're just a bit of a challenge because the USDA only has 36 hours or whatnot to endorse, and then usually we need to get them FedEx. So you got to rely on the USDA and FedEx to do their jobs. So that is one of the challenges with the new rule that came out.
Okay, we have a question from Tigers Treasures in Purple. Do you provide the kennels or do I need to buy them?
So we have packages that you can add on a kennel, and if you don't want to do it through us, we will give you the kennel we would recommend. The airlines only uses really a couple brands. So if you just decide not to order a kennel and accessories through us, we'll be sure to tell you exactly what you need.
Yep. And I believe we send out a kennel sizing kit to all of our new customers, which will help you measure your pet just to make sure if you are purchasing it on your own, you're getting the correct IPATA approved sizing for that as well.
Right.
Okay. How do pet relocation services like Starwood handle military moves with pets?
So they're not handled much differently, I don't think, than any other pet. There are some rules in different countries that are more lax if you're in the military. Just for example, if you're going to Japan, they allow you to do quarantine on the base rather than waiting 6 months after your blood work. I know the military now has a reimbursement policy, so if you do work with us, we can provide you a detailed invoice to get that reimbursement. Casey, do you know if there's anything more specific for military families?
On the operation side, it's about the same with the flight bookings and the health certificates and all that. I will say the only thing top of mind that's a little bit different is if you're using a military vet, like we were talking about the USDA, a military vet is considered an accredited vet or an official veterinarian, so you can actually skip the USDA endorsement process just by having them sign off on the health certificate.
That's really helpful.
Yeah, that's a big bonus.
As someone that was in the military previously, I know that when you get those PCS papers, it comes on very suddenly and you're not necessarily planned to go somewhere. How does being in the military shift the timeline, or do rules still apply in regards to, rabies tests or waiting periods despite that challenge?
Can you guys see me still? I just keep getting this pop up.
Yeah,
maybe not.
I can see you.
Okay, then I'll just wait. So we do try to prioritize military families if they're on a rush timeline. But at the end of the day, countries' rules are their rules, and we can't really change those unless, like I said, for Japan, they're a little bit lax. So we know that it's a hard predicament for the family just to be giving orders to a foreign land or to Hawaii and get there on a timeline. So we definitely do take that into account and, try to work as hard as we can to make sure our military families are reunited with their pets.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, just a reminder to anybody on the call, feel free to drop your questions in the chat and we will answer them for you. Oh, we just lost Ryan again. She should be back shortly. There she is. Okay. What is one of the biggest worries that pet owners have about missing their pet's travel deadline? So anything that you guys can speak to about timelines, deadlines, that seems to be a reoccurring stressor.
Yeah, I think people might not, unless they do their independent research, they might not realize for certain countries the lead time. For example, for Singapore and Taiwan, you have to build in an extra like 4 months because there is a waiting period after blood work, and same for Australia and New Zealand. So that's why we started off saying it's never too early to start planning your pet's move. I think that's usually the thing I hear most about, timelines not being met. And then Casey could probably also talk to the time that the airline needs and we need to actually book a flight, because flights do get full when we're approaching like 2 weeks out. So that's a bit of a barrier too.
Yeah, the airlines, it's a lot different from passenger bookings when you're working with the cargo side, especially with live animals. They have a very tight booking window. Most of them are actually not going to confirm a flight to until like 7 days before departure to have that fully confirmed. And that can be a bit of a stressor because that means sometimes you're doing a health certificate before you have a confirmed flight. But you still want to make sure that you're staying on top of your timelines, whether it's treatments that are needed for Australia, New Zealand, health certificate timelines, so that way when we do get a confirmed flight, we're good to go and we still have all of our ducks in a row.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Where do pets go on a plane? We kind of touched on this earlier.
Yeah, so I don't know if there's a more official name for it, but we just refer to it as the pet cargo hold, which is under the plane. So it's not with like the suitcases, which some people think. It's a dedicated, temperature controlled, pressurized area that engineers need to check before pets are allowed on the plane. Sometimes we have to cancel a pet's flight because the mechanics of that room isn't working. And so even though that might be a bummer at the end of the day, it's all about safety. So there are a lot of checks to make sure your pet is in a safe environment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay, we have another question from Vino and Vespa Doodles. I really like that username. Asking, where are you based? We're based all over the United States, so we're a remote workforce. We have people on the East Coast, the West Coast. I know Ryan's calling in from Colorado today. I'm in Pennsylvania, so we're pretty spread out, available in all sorts of different time zones. Technically, Starwood's headquarters is in Cape Coral, Florida, though. Okay. We also have some questions slotted for today that we get asked them a lot. So while we're waiting on some more live questions to come work through that list and answer them in real time. Okay. So what makes pet relocation services for international moves particularly challenging?
I think that's
so maybe this is for this is probably for like the DIYers out there that try to do it themselves. What makes it so challenging, and kind of where does Starwood step in to help resolve some of those major challenges?
I think it's a lot of, I think it's a lot of moving pieces, especially depending on the destination you're going to. We talked about it a little bit earlier about what the USDA requires and what maybe the destination country requires for customs. That can be a bit of a challenging piece. So you want to make sure that you're meeting both of those. You also want to check in on flight routing options. Just because it's a passenger aircraft with passengers being able to be booked does not mean that it's necessarily pet friendly, or even that the crate is big enough. So those logistics create a challenge, and then making sure all the timelines line up perfectly. Like we said, the booking windows are pretty short. So you want to make sure your health certificate, the USDA endorsement, all of those things are lining up perfectly, and then you're meeting all the requirements along the way. What does the USDA require to endorse the certificate, and what is customs going to need on the documentation to clear?
Yeah, and I think for our company, we take out any sort of variable that is not in our control that we can just make sure everything's perfect, like the health certificates, your vet work, try and get the flight you want, um, know exactly what you need for customs so that you're not having to do all your independent research. If you work with us, we will give you a timeline, we'll go through everything on our onboarding call, and then you can reach out to our team of coordinators via email or phone if you ever have a question. But we try to be really proactive so you know what we do on our side and what we expect as like a team on your side, whether it's picking up rabies certificates that we have approved, or just booking your vet appointment or adjusting the kennel. So we really like to lay out all the steps for you when you first start with us.
Okay, incoming question. Will you pick up pets at home, or do we need to transport them to the airport?
It really depends on where you're located. We can always arrange a home pickup. Obviously, if you're 8 hours from the airport, that's going to cost a little bit more than if you're just 30 minutes. So yeah, I would say we can tailor your package to what you need, whether you want to meet us at the airport and spend a little more time with your pet, or if you need collection because of the size of the kennel or just your own flight time.
Yeah. And a follow-up question from Tiger's Treasures in Purple. What happens to the pets if I don't arrive at the same time?
I mean, so that's like if your flight's delayed, for example, or if you set it up that you're arriving a few hours or multiple days after, usually we'll know that ahead of time and we'll set up boarding on the destination end. Or if you have a friend or family we can deliver or hand over to, we set that all up in advance. So our drivers and our customs teams know whether we're bringing it boarding or handing over to a friend or family if the owner is going to be delayed or arriving a few days later. So that's usually never an issue.
Yep. Okay. Does Starwood Pet Travel offer personalized relocation services for pets?
Yeah, so if you were to see one of our quotes, we have a few different packages. We have just like your basic economy, which isn't a lot of extra. So if you're already ready to meet us at the airport, you want to pick up, you don't need extensive help on your vet work. We offer that package, even though we always do double check vet work because that's important. And then the business package, usually that does include delivery, and a little more intensive help with the vet work. And then our premium package, we will do the final health certificate for you and bring your pet to the vet. It includes a few days of boarding, and just that extra reassurance that you're going to be using our vet that we work with daily in whatever city you're in, and making sure that has a bow on it before your pet arrives.
Yep, absolutely. And I just dropped a link in the chat. This is our international pet travel pricing page, and if you scroll to the bottom, it outlines those 3 tiers that Ryan just mentioned a bit in more detail: economy, business, and premium. So all of the different inclusions that you get with that. And also at the top of that tool, if you're curious about average costs based on your destination country and number of pets, you can use that calculator tool to figure out a bit more for budgeting and just planning purposes as well. Okay, how do you coordinate pet shipping with family flight plans. So a bit ago, we touched on that new EU rule and how pet parents essentially need to travel at the same time as their pets. But can you expand on that a bit more? How does that tie into rules where maybe that doesn't apply, or maybe a family already booked their tickets and now they need to get their pets flight? How does that all work together?
Yeah, I mean, for us at least, we discuss timing at our onboarding stage so that we can anticipate any discrepancy between when you and your family arrive and when your pet arrives. So outside of the EU rules, a lot of people traveling may need to get there for school early or for work, like weeks or months in advance. So it's really not an issue to line up the flights. With the new EU rule, if you want to be on the same flight as your pet, we will usually advise what pet-friendly flight we can book, and then you can go ahead and book that, and then our booking window is a lot shorter, so we will book that, hopefully that same flight when we can. So we try to work with clients on timing as much as we can, and if there's going to be a period of time where they need boarding either on the US side or internationally, that's very easy for us to set up.
Yeah. Okay. All right, another question that just came in. Is it better to take my pet in cabin or in cargo? Sometimes it's not a choice, right?
Yeah. I think that goes back to earlier, depending on if you can arrive to the destination country with the pet in cabin, also the size of your pet. Obviously, a Great Dane is probably not going to be able to travel in cabin. So I think it's just for you, your best situation, and what works well for you, and if it's allowed. Does the airline allow it? Is the country going to allow it? And then making sure that you're double checking all that information, so you don't get to the check-in counter and have anything surprised or thrown at you.
Yep.
Right.
Okay, well, if you have any remaining questions, please drop them in the chat. Seems like the chat room is starting to slow down a bit, so I'm going to jump back into our presentation so we can wrap things up. Okay, last announcement. If you have not entered into our giveaway yet, make sure you fill out the form that we shared at the beginning of the chat. I think we should probably drop that back in again just so anybody that joined after can enter. Giving away 3 prizes: a Starwood pet bandana, a $20 Amazon gift card, or $200 off your Starwood move. So make sure you enter via that prize form we just shared in the chat, and we'll contact you after the event to let you know if you've won. And a big thank you to everybody that joined today, asked your questions. We will be sending this video on demand to anybody that is in our email list, so stay tuned for that. You can watch recaps and highlights from today. And if you have any other questions, fill out a quote at starwoodpet.com or email us at info@starwoodpet.com. Thanks for joining.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.